Hi everyone. It's great to see you again. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today, we have a brand new story to share with you. So, let's get started. I didn't think I'd hear something like that. I had just finished cleaning up after dinner that night. I had been cooking, setting the table, and making sure everything was in order while my wife rested after work for years. It didn't bother me. I thought that balance was important in a relationship. I worked hard, and so did she. I didn't feel like I had to help out around the house, it was just what you did when you cared about someone. Her friends were coming over, so I didn't bother them, letting them talk without making me feel like I was listening in. The last of the dishes were being rinsed in the kitchen when I heard them laughing in the living room. Their voices were clear throughout the house. I didn't mean to listen, but when I heard my name, my hands stopped moving around the sink. The only things he can do are cook and clean. The words came from her, my wife. I thought for a second that I had heard something wrong, but then everyone started laughing, as if what she had said was the funniest thing in the world for everyone. One of her friends said, "You're so lucky," and they laughed. I wish my husband would stop whining and do the chores around the house. And she laughed again and said, "Right. He would likely spend the whole day in the kitchen if I let him. Well, at least I don't have to do anything." More laughs. More jokes. I could hear them talking one after the other, each adding something to the conversation and making fun of me. As I stood there with a dish towel in my hand, the woman I had cared for years called me nothing more than a fancy maid. It wasn't just what she said, it was also how she said it. There was no admiration or love in her tone, it was all mockery. It felt like I was weak for taking care of her, like I was less valuable because I made sure she never came home to a dirty house or an empty plate. I could have walked in, called her out, and asked her why she felt the need to make fun of me in front of her friends, but I didn't. I didn't say a word. I stood there and stared at the dirty water. I could feel something change inside me. The fact that she didn't see me as her partner may have caused it. Perhaps realizing that I had been giving my best to someone who didn't value me made it better. I left the kitchen after putting the dish towel down on the counter. I don't know how long I stood there and let their laughing fill the house. I did not wish to see her. I didn't want to see the smug look she probably had on her face, the way she got pleasure from making them laugh by seeing me as a joke. I went to bed. I lay there and stared at the ceiling. I felt surprisingly calm. I thought I would feel anger, maybe even rage, but what I felt was much cooler. It was clear. I worked hard for years to be the best maid I could be. Because I really believed we were a team, I never saw what I did as a sacrifice. I got it now, though. She didn't see me as a partner. She thought of me as a help, a tool, and tools can be changed. That night, something changed. I didn't act out. I didn't start a fight. I didn't even tell her I hurt her. But after that, I knew things would never be the same again. Like always, I got up before her the next morning. I stood there and looked at the ceiling for a while, letting the quiet of the house wash over me. Every morning, I'd get up, make coffee, and start breakfast so she could smell good food when she woke up. Not right now. While getting ready and out of the house, I didn't say a word. It wasn't a passive-aggressive slam of the door, and I didn't say anything big about how hurt I was. I just left. I forgot to see if she was awake. I didn't check to see what she asked for. It was most important that I didn't care. I only thought about myself for the first time in years. On my way to work, I stopped at a coffee shop and stayed there longer than I should have because I liked not having to be anywhere or do anything for anyone. I took slow sips of my coffee and watched the time go by. I was always in a hurry to get home from work and make sure she had everything she needed before she even asked. Not any longer. I didn't text her during the day to see how she was doing. I didn't answer her normal, "What's for dinner?" message. I worked slowly and didn't go home right away when the day was over. I worked out at the gym. I hadn't done anything just for myself in a long time. It used to be that I worked out every day, but I haven't been in a while. I was always too busy taking care of things at home. I noticed how much of myself I had lost as I stood there lifting weights and felt my muscles strain. I didn't have food ready when I got home because it was already late. She was sitting on the couch and looking at her phone. "Where were you?" she asked with her eyes barely open. I shook my head and kicked off my shoes. She frowned when she was outside. "Where did you go?" "Just outside." Her eyes got narrow. "I haven't eaten yet, so I hope you got something for dinner." I looked at her very carefully. Just like she thought I would have taken care of everything by now, she wasn't mad. As I went to the bedroom, I walked by her. "The fridge has food in it." That was the first crack. She didn't say anything right away because she probably thought I would change my mind and bring her a plate. I didn't, though. I washed up. I took my time. She was still sitting there with her arms crossed when I finally came back out. "You didn't make dinner?" I just said, "No." She laughed. "What? Do you want me to cook now?" I leaned against the counter with a bottle of water in my hand. "Do anything you want." She changed her face in ways that were almost funny. She thought I was kidding at first. Then she thought I was making a point. I wasn't, though. I was done. That night, she didn't say anything else. She got takeout and ate alone, and I went to bed without saying anything else. I did the same thing the next day and the day after that. There was no breakfast, lunch, or dinner ready for her when she got home. I still made my side of the bed and washed my dishes if I used any. No longer did I clean up after her. The clothes piled up. They were in the sink longer than usual. Even though the house wasn't dirty yet, it was clear that it was. She pretended not to care. But I saw how she looked at the kitchen as she came in. The way her eyebrows moved when she realized she hadn't taken out the trash. She still didn't say anything. Not yet. It seemed like she didn't care at first. I could see it. How she ignored the mess that was getting worse. How she looked at her phone while sitting next to a bunch of clean clothes. The way she would walk by the trash can that was full without even looking at it. To her, this seemed like a silly game or an attempt to make a point. I wasn't having fun. She stood her ground for the first week. She got takeout, dumped her dirty dishes on the counter, and threw her clothes on the floor like she always did, thinking they would suddenly go away. But they weren't. The cracks were beginning to show by the second week. The bags of food got piled up. There was a lot in the sink. There were streaks on the bathroom mirror from toothpaste that she never cleaned up. The wash basket was full to the brim. She was running out of clean clothes because I only washed my own. Her loud sighing as she sorted through the mess in front of the closet woke me up one morning. She asked, "Did you do your laundry?" and didn't even look at me. I said, for myself, "Yeah," and picked up a shirt from my nicely folded pile. She laughed. "Really?" I gave a shrug. "It's fine for me to wash my own clothes." Her jaw got tight. She seemed to want to fight and tell me I was being selfish. But she stopped. In its place, she stormed off, grabbed an iron shirt from the back of the closet, and was gone. She did something different that night. I was on the couch with my phone in my hand when she came into the kitchen and started banging pots together. She never cooked. She didn't really know how. On the other hand, she was now standing at the stove, scrolling through a recipe while looking angry. After a short time, I could smell something burning. Under her breath, she swore. Then she took the pan off the heat and waved a towel over the smoke. I didn't move. I didn't offer to help. I did nothing but watch. After looking at me, she turned to see what I would do. I drank a little of my drink. She snapped, "You could help." I just said, I could. She narrowed her eyes. Now you're just not going to cook. I gave them a raised look. I thought all I could do was clean and cook. That made her stop talking. It was the first time I had seen it since it all began. There was a flash of something in her face, like recognition or even guilt. It didn't last though. She huffed and went back to the stove, working hard to fix the mess she had made. I let her do it. When the third week came around, the house was a mess. She had to wear clothes from the bottom of the bin again. There were burnt pots and half-finished meals piled up on the counter in the kitchen. To find a clean fork, she had to look through drawers. I still didn't say anything. She tried something different by making passive-aggressive comments. She said to herself one night as she pushed crumbs off the table, "This place is gross." I agreed, "Yeah, it is," and looked through my phone. She was waiting for me to answer. I didn't. "Are you really okay with life this way?" she asked with her arms crossed. I gave a shrug. "I take care of my things." She made a thin line with her lips. "This makes no sense." I didn't even look up as I said, "Then clean it." That didn't make her say anything. By the fourth week, the cracks had grown into full-on anger. When I got home one night, she was standing in the middle of the kitchen with her arms crossed and staring at the mess as if it were her fault. She said, "This isn't right." "What's not?" "You're not going to do anything about this." I put my head down on the counter and leaned against it. "Not willing. I'm no longer willing to do everything for you." She looked at me, and I could see her slowly realizing that she had never liked what I did until it was over. She made fun of me and laughed at me for taking care of our house. She was now standing in the rubble of something she had taken for granted, and I didn't mind at all as I watched it all fall apart. No, the house had not turned into a battlefield where people yelled and slammed doors. It wasn't that loud, it was a war of silence, of avoiding, and of moving blame that wasn't mine to bear. She was falling apart. I could tell by the way she walked past the mess without her usual dismissive attitude and the way she paused before opening the fridge when she saw that there was no ready-made meal inside. Because she looked at her phone more often and thought I would tell her to do the things I used to do. I was no longer her safety net, though. From the beginning of the month until the end, she tried to act like it didn't bother her, but her anger was too much to hide. I was late getting home one night. I started going out more, but not with anyone in particular. I just liked being free from the stress of our house and her demands. I went out for drinks with coworkers, worked out longer, and took the scenic way home just because I could. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her arms crossed and her foot tapping angrily when I walked in the door. A soft buzzing light in the kitchen cast shadows over the mess that had taken over every counter. She had been ready for me. "Where were you?" I hadn't heard her voice that sharp in weeks when she asked. I just said, "Out," and put my keys down. She clenched her teeth. "Where did you go?" I stood there for a moment and got a bottle of water from the fridge. "Just got out." She laughed and pushed off the table. "Are you really going to act this way?" "What kind of way?" "It seems like you don't care." I leaned against the counter and looked at her. She looked different. She was tired, her hair was a mess, and her eyes were dark. She was still wearing her work clothes, but they were wrinkly, like she hadn't changed them when she got home. For the first time in years, she looked like she was worn out. That's when I knew. Finally, she got it. It wasn't like I was trying to get back at them for something small. That she would understand how much I had done for her, how I had kept our home and our life together, and how little she had ever valued it. She had made fun of me and told me I wasn't good enough because I cooked, cleaned, and took care of her for so long. But now that I wasn't there, she was falling apart. She let out a sharp breath and stood up. She said, "Fine. Then I'll do everything by myself." I didn't stop her. I saw her stomp toward the sink and turn on the water with a little too much force. She began scrubbing the plates hard while mumbling something. I could have helped. Like I always did, I could have stepped in, grabbed the towel from her, and washed the dishes. I didn't, though. I didn't have to help her anymore. She tried a different plan the next morning. She played the victim instead of being angry. She sat on the edge of the bed and said, "I don't understand what's going on with us." Her voice was getting lower. "We used to work together." I took a quick look at her. "Did we?" She made a face. "Yes, we did." I stood up and shook my head. I was part of a team. You could only watch. That made her quiet down. She picked at her nails as she looked down at her hands. It was the first time she didn't have a snarky answer. Nothing was said in jest or with sarcasm, there was only quiet. It was too late to think about it, though. I had been the one who cared, worked hard, and made sure our life ran smoothly for years. What I got in return was ridicule and laughter at my cost. She had finally been alone, and I wasn't going to protect her from it. She was losing her cool. The cracks had turned into breaks, and she couldn't hide the fact that she was having a hard time by avoiding it. The house was a mess. It was just takeout and microwave meals for her, and she didn't have me for the little things she used to depend on. I wasn't going out of my way to make her life easier for once. Over the next few days, she tried different things. At first, she didn't say a word to me, thinking that the silence would make me give up. Then she started making mean comments again and rolling her eyes every time she had to do something like wash dishes or take out the trash. When that didn't work, she started being extra nice and saying things like, "Things don't have to be this way," or "We should get back to normal." I didn't give her anything. Then things really broke down. It was Friday night when I dealt the last hit. She stood in the hallway of our bedroom with her arms crossed while I packed a bag and folded some clothes. That was a stronger tone of voice when she asked, "Where are you going?" I didn't look up when I said, "Away for the weekend." She tensed up. "What do you mean by, away?" I closed the bag's zipper and looked her in the eyes. "I'm really going away for a few days." She put her arms down by her sides. "You're just leaving?" I said yes. Yes, she blinked as if the idea were totally alien to her. "Without telling me?" "I'm going to tell you now." She opened her mouth and then shut it again. As she thought about it, she tried to find something to hold on to so she could turn it into a fight or argument that she thought she could win. There was nothing, though. I wasn't mad. I didn't feel anything. I was done. "Are you going to really act like this?" Her voice rose as she asked. "What kind of way?" "Like a kid having a temper tantrum." That made me laugh a little. "Do you think this is a temper tantrum?" She put her hands up. "You are, in fact, leaving. As if the things we've built together don't matter." I stopped for a second to let the words sink in. Everything we made? The bed wasn't made, but I used to make it every morning. The hamper was full of clothes she hadn't touched, and the table was empty, but that's where I used to leave notes or her favorite snacks just because. It wasn't us. We had never been there. I worked for her as the servant and she was the queen of this house. Everything fell apart as soon as I stopped serving. I put my bag over my shoulder after picking it up. As I walked by her, I told her, "I'll be back on Sunday." She moved out of the way of me. "This makes no sense." I didn't answer. "Are you going to tell me where you're going?" Nope, her nose got big. She was mad now, not because I was going, but because she couldn't keep things under control. I was free from her power. I took back my power for the first time in years, and she had no idea what to do with it. She asked, "Are you just going to walk out that door?" Not as loud now. I looked into her eyes one last time. Yes, and I did. There were no apologies, explanations, or excuses. As I left her standing there by herself in the mess she had made. I thought I would feel something when I left that house, guilt, second thoughts, or maybe even the pull of duty that had kept me there for so long. But there was nothing. There was only freedom, quiet, and air. I drove without a clear idea of where I was going, I just knew I had to be somewhere else. I pulled over at a quiet hotel by the beach and checked in right away. For the next 2 days, I did something I hadn't done in years, I lived for myself. I chose when to eat. I went to sleep whenever I wanted to. I didn't think about what I had to do at home while I sat by the ocean and watched the waves come in. I have no duties, no demands, and no one is asking anything of me. I felt good for the first time in a long time. When I got home Sunday night, I went back to the life I had put on hold for the weekend. But I knew as soon as I opened the door. Things were different. Right there at the table, waiting for me, she was. The house was still a mess. There was a faint smell of old food in the air, and the trash can and dishes were piled high. Nothing was fixed by her. She had not cleaned up or taken responsibility for the mess she had caused. Her only hope was for me to fix everything the way I always did it and make things right again. Had fun? She asked, but her voice was so flat that it was hard to understand. I put my bag down. Yeah, I did, she said, leaning back in her chair and crossing her arms. I looked around at the house and saw the mess she had let grow, then looked into her eyes. Must be nice, just leaving everything behind. Yeah, it was. Something changed in her face. That's when I realized I had changed for real, that I wasn't just trying to prove something to her, that I wasn't waiting for her to say sorry before we could make up. She lost her confidence for the first time when she said, I was done. She cleared her throat and said, okay. What now? You got your point across. Can we stop this pointless game and go back to normal? I slowly let out a breath and then walked over to the table. A letter envelope was in my bag. I put it in front of her and slid it across the table. She looked at it. She did not move or speak as he asked, what is this? Divorce papers. She didn't do anything but blink, as if she hadn't heard me right. When she finally looked up, it was impossible to read her face. He asked, are you serious? She shook her head yes. A stupid argument has made you throw away everything? I laughed a little and shook my head. This has nothing to do with a fight. This is about us, or the fact that there is no longer a us. She laughed and ran her hand through her hair. This is crazy. You sound like you think I cheated on you or something. I didn't say anything, because in a way, she had. She had betrayed me in a way that wasn't traditional or easy to explain, but she had still done it by making fun of me, treating me badly, and acting like I was nothing to her. She had laughed at our marriage, and now she had to deal with the consequences. She clenched her hands on the table. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I said with a steady voice. I am, she replied. I could see that her pride was going up against something more important. Maybe fear. Seeing that she had gone too far and that the man who used to do everything for her was leaving her was really sad. She had a point. She could beg. She could say that things would be different. It was too late, though. Another time, I picked up my bag. I didn't need anything else from that house or that life. I cursed the mess around us and said, good luck. I hope you enjoy cooking and cleaning by yourself. I didn't look back as I left the room. I wasn't going to come back this time. Hi everyone. It's great to see you again. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Today, we have a brand new story to share with you. So, let's get started. I never expected to overhear something like that. That night I had just finished cleaning up after dinner. It was a routine I had followed for years, cooking, setting the table, making sure everything was in order while my wife relaxed after work. I didn't mind it. I believed that a relationship was about balance. She worked hard and so did I. Helping around the house wasn't some burden for me, it was just what you did when you cared about someone. She had invited some friends over, so I made myself scarce, giving them space to chat without feeling like I was eavesdropping. I was in the kitchen rinsing the last of the dishes when I heard them laughing from the living room. Their voices carried easily through the house. I wasn't trying to listen, but when I heard my name my hands froze over the sink. He's only good for cooking and cleaning. The words were hers, my wife's. For a second I thought I had misheard, then laughter erupted, not just from her but from all of them, a chorus of amusement, as if what she had said was the most hilarious thing in the world. "You're so lucky," one of her friends said, between chuckles. "I wish my husband would just shut up and do housework instead of complaining about everything." "Right," my wife added, still laughing. "If I let him, he'd probably spend the whole day in the kitchen. But hey, at least I don't have to lift a finger." More laughter. More jokes. I could hear them taking turns, each of them adding to the conversation, turning me into some kind of punchline. I stood there, dish towel in hand, listening as the woman I had spent years caring for reduced me to nothing more than a glorified housekeeper. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. There was no appreciation in her tone, no hint of affection, just mockery. Like I was pathetic for taking care of her, like I was worth less because I had been the one making sure she never came home to a dirty house or an empty plate. I could have walked in there, I could have called her out, asked her why she felt the need to humiliate me in front of her friends, but I didn't say a word. I just stood there, staring at the soapy water, feeling something inside me shift. Maybe it was the realization that she didn't see me as her partner. Maybe it was the understanding that, all this time, I had been giving my best to someone who didn't respect me. I don't know how long I stood there, letting their laughter fill the house, but when it finally died down, I placed the dish towel on the counter and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't want to look at her. I didn't want to see the smug expressions she probably had on her face, the way she thrived on their laughter, reveling in the image of me as some kind of joke. So I went to bed. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling strangely calm. I had expected anger, rage even, but what I felt was something much colder. It was clarity. I had spent years trying to be the best husband I could be. I never thought of my efforts as sacrifices because I genuinely believed we were a team. But now I understood. She didn't see me as a partner. She saw me as a convenience, a tool, and tools could be replaced. That was the night something changed. I didn't lash out. I didn't start a fight. I didn't even let on that I had hurt her. But I knew from that moment on that things would never be the same. The next morning I woke up before her, just like always. I stared at the ceiling for a few minutes, letting the silence of the house settle over me. Normally, I'd get up, make coffee, and start breakfast so she could wake up to the smell of fresh food. Not today. I got out of bed, showered, dressed, and left the house without a word. There was no passive-aggressive slam of the door, no dramatic declaration of how hurt I was. I just left. I didn't check if she was awake. I didn't look to see if she needed anything. And most importantly, I didn't care. For the first time in years, I focused entirely on myself. I stopped at a coffee shop on my way to work and sat there longer than I needed to, just enjoying the fact that no one was expecting me to be somewhere or do something for them. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the minutes pass. Usually I was in a rush to get back home after work to make sure she had everything she needed before she even had to ask. Not anymore. I didn't text her during the day to check in. I didn't respond to her usual "what's for dinner" message. I just worked, took my time, and when the day ended, I didn't go straight home. I went to the gym. It had been so long since I'd done anything purely for myself. I used to work out regularly, but over time, I had let it slip. I was always too busy making sure everything at home was taken care of. But standing there, lifting weights, feeling my muscles strain, I realized how much of myself I had lost. When I finally did get home, it was past the time I'd normally have dinner ready. She was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Where were you?" she asked, barely looking up. I shrugged, kicking off my shoes. "Out," she frowned. "Out where?" "Just out," her eyes narrowed. "Well, I hope you got something for dinner because I haven't eaten yet." I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't mad, just expecting, like it was a given that I'd have handled everything by now. I walked past her, heading to the bedroom. "There's food in the fridge." That was the first crack. She didn't say anything right away, probably expecting me to change my mind and come back with a plate for her. But I didn't. I took a shower. I took my time. And when I finally came back out, she was still sitting there, arms crossed. "You didn't cook." "No," I said simply. She scoffed. "So what? You expect me to cook now?" I grabbed a bottle of water and leaned against the counter. "Do whatever you want." The way her expression shifted was almost amusing. At first she thought I was joking. Then she thought I was trying to prove some kind of point. But I wasn't. I was just done. She didn't say anything else that night. She ordered takeout, ate in silence, and I went to bed without another word. The next day I did the same thing, and the day after that. No breakfast, no lunch packed for her, no dinner waiting when she got home. I still cleaned up after myself, my side of the bed, my dishes if I used any. But I stopped cleaning up after her. The laundry piled up. The dishes sat in the sink longer than usual. The house wasn't dirty yet, but it was noticeable. She tried to act like she didn't care. But I could see the way she glanced at the kitchen when she walked in. The way her eyebrows twitched when she realized the trash hadn't been taken out. Still, she didn't say anything. Not yet. At first, she pretended not to care. I could see it. The way she ignored the growing mess. How she scrolled through her phone while sitting next to a pile of unfolded laundry. How she would walk past the overflowing trash can without even glancing at it. She thought this was some kind of game, a childish attempt to prove a point. I wasn't playing. The first week, she held her ground. She ordered takeout, left dirty dishes on the counter, and tossed her clothes on the floor like she always did, assuming they'd magically disappear, but the magic was gone. By the second week, the cracks were starting to show. The takeout bags piled up. The sink was full. The bathroom mirror had streaks from toothpaste splatters she never wiped off. The laundry basket was overflowing. And since I only washed my own clothes, she was running out of clean outfits. One morning, I found her standing in front of the closet, sighing loudly as she sifted through the mess. "Did you do laundry?" she asked, not even turning to look at me. "For myself, yeah," I said casually, grabbing a shirt from my neatly folded pile. She scoffed. "Really?" I shrugged. "I don't have an issue washing my own clothes." Her jaw tightened. I could tell she wanted to argue, wanted to tell me I was being petty. But she stopped herself. Instead, she grabbed some wrinkled shirt from the back of the closet and stormed off. That night, she tried something new. I was sitting on the couch watching something on my phone when she walked into the kitchen and started banging pots around. She was never one to cook. She barely knew how. But now she was standing at the stove, scrolling through some recipe with a frustrated expression. A few minutes later, I smelled something burning. She cursed under her breath, yanking the pan off the heat and waving a towel over the smoke. I didn't move. I didn't offer to help. I just sat there watching. She turned to look at me, expecting some reaction. I took a sip of my drink. "You could help, you know," she snapped. "I could," I said simply. Her eyes narrowed. "So now you're just refusing to cook?" I raised an eyebrow. I thought I was only good for cooking and cleaning. That shut her up. For the first time since this whole thing started, I saw it. A flicker of something in her expression, recognition, maybe even guilt. But it didn't last. She huffed and turned back to the stove, struggling to fix whatever disaster she had created. I left her to it. By the third week, the house was in complete disarray. She had resorted to re-wearing clothes from the bottom of the hamper. The kitchen was a disaster zone, with half-finished meals and burnt pots stacked on the counter. She had to dig through drawers to find a clean fork. I still didn't say anything. She tried a different approach, passive-aggressive comments. "This place is disgusting," she muttered one evening, pushing crumbs off the table. "Yeah, it is," I agreed, flipping through my phone. She waited, expecting me to react. I didn't. "Are you seriously okay living like this?" she asked, arms crossed. I shrugged. "I take care of my stuff." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "This is ridiculous." "Then clean it," I said, not even looking up. She didn't have a response to that. By the fourth week, the cracks turned into full-blown frustration. I walked in one evening to find her standing in the middle of the kitchen, arms crossed, looking at the mess like it had personally offended her. "This isn't normal," she said. "What isn't?" "This, you refusing to do anything." I leaned against the counter, tilting my head. "Refusing? I'm just not doing everything for you anymore." She stared at me, and I could see it now, the slow realization that she had never appreciated what I did until it was gone. She had laughed at me, mocked me, made me feel like I was weak for taking care of our home. Now she was standing in the wreckage of what she had taken for granted, and I was perfectly fine watching it all fall apart. The house had become a battlefield, not in the sense of yelling or slamming doors. No, it was quieter than that, a war of silence, of avoidance, of shifting responsibilities that were no longer mine to bear. She was unraveling. I could see it in the way she walked past the mess without her usual dismissive attitude, in how she hesitated before opening the fridge, realizing there was no prepared meal waiting for her. In the way she checked her phone more often, expecting me to remind her to do the things I used to handle. But I was done being her safety net. She tried to act like it didn't bother her, but by the end of the month, her frustration was impossible to ignore. One night, I came home later than usual. I had started going out more, not with anyone in particular, just enjoying the freedom of being away from the weight of our house, of her expectations. I grabbed drinks with coworkers, stayed at the gym longer, took the scenic route home just because I could. When I walked through the door, she was sitting at the kitchen table, arms crossed, foot tapping impatiently. The kitchen light buzzed softly, casting shadows over the mess that had taken over every counter. She had been waiting for me. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice sharper than I'd heard in weeks. "Out," I said simply, setting my keys down. Her jaw clenched. "Out where?" I pulled a bottle of water from the fridge, taking my time before answering. "Just out." She scoffed, pushing back from the table. "You're really gonna act like this, huh?" "Like what?" "Like you don't care." I leaned against the counter, studying her. She looked different. Tired, her hair was a mess, dark circles under her eyes. She was still wearing work clothes, but they were wrinkled, like she hadn't bothered to change after getting home. It was the first time in years that she looked exhausted. And that's when I knew. She finally understood. This wasn't about me playing some petty revenge game. This was about her realizing just how much I had done, how much I had held our home, our life together, and how little she had ever appreciated it. She had spent so much time mocking me, devaluing me, making me feel like less of a man for cooking, cleaning, and taking care of her. But now without me, she was falling apart. She exhaled sharply, standing up. "Fine," she muttered. "I'll just do everything myself then." I didn't stop her. I watched as she stomped toward the sink, turning on the water with a little too much force. She started scrubbing plates aggressively, muttering under her breath. I could have helped. I could have stepped in, taken the towel from her hands, and washed the dishes like I always did. But I didn't. She wasn't entitled to my help anymore. The next morning, she tried a different tactic. Instead of anger, she played the victim. I don't understand what's happening to us, she said, sitting on the edge of the bed, her voice softer now. We used to be a team. I glanced at her. Did we? She frowned. Of course we did. I shook my head, standing up. No, I was a team. You were a spectator. That shut her up. She looked down at her hands, picking at her nails. For the first time, she didn't have a snarky comeback. No joke, no eye roll, no sarcastic remark, just silence. But it was too late for reflection. I had spent years being the one who cared, who put in the effort, who made sure our life functioned. And all I got in return was mockery, was laughter at my expense. Now she finally felt what it was like to be alone, and I wasn't going to save her from it. She was losing control. The cracks had turned into fractures, and no amount of avoidance could hide the fact that she was struggling. The house was a mess. She was living off takeout and microwave meals, and she no longer had me to rely on for the little things she used to take for granted. And for once, I wasn't bending over backward to make her life easier. She tried different tactics over the next few days. First, she ignored me completely, hoping I'd cave under the silence. Then she went back to snide remarks, rolling her eyes every time she had to wash a dish or take out the trash. When that didn't work, she started acting unusually nice, making little comments about how we should get back to normal, or things don't have to be like this. I gave her nothing. And then came the breaking point. It was a Friday evening when I dropped the final blow. I was packing a bag, casually folding some clothes while she stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed. Where are you going? She asked, her tone sharper than usual. Away for the weekend, I said without looking up. She stiffened. Away, what do you mean, away? I zipped up the bag and finally met her eyes. I mean, I'm leaving for a few days. Her arms dropped to her sides. You're just leaving. I nodded. Yeah, she blinked like the concept was completely foreign to her. Without telling me? I'm telling you now. Her mouth opened, then closed. She was trying to process it, trying to find something to latch onto so she could turn this into a fight or an argument she thought she could win. But there was nothing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't emotional. I was just done. You're really gonna be like this? She asked, her voice rising. Like what? Like some child throwing a tantrum. I let out a small laugh at that. You think this is a tantrum? She threw her hands up. Yes, you're just walking away. Acting like everything we built together means nothing. I paused for a moment, letting the words settle. Everything we built. I looked around the bedroom, the unmade bed that I used to straighten every morning, the laundry hamper overflowing with clothes she hadn't bothered to touch, the empty nightstand where I used to leave little notes or her favorite snacks just because. It wasn't we. It had never been we. She had been the queen of this castle and I had been the servant. And the moment I stopped serving, everything crumbled. I picked up my bag and slung it over my shoulder. I'll be back Sunday, I said, walking past her. She stepped in front of me. This is ridiculous. I didn't respond. Are you even going to tell me where you're going? Nope, her nostrils flared. She was furious now, not because I was leaving, but because she couldn't control the situation. She couldn't control me. For the first time in years, I had taken my power back and she had no idea how to handle it. You're just going to walk out that door, she asked. Voice quieter now. I met her eyes one last time. Yeah, and then I did. No explanations, no justifications, no apologies. I walked out, leaving her standing there alone in the mess she had created. When I walked out that door, I expected to feel something: guilt, second thoughts, maybe even the lingering pull of responsibility that had kept me tied to that house for so long. But there was nothing, just silence, just air, just freedom. I drove without a real destination in mind, just knowing that I needed to be anywhere but there. I stopped at a quiet motel by the coast, checked in without hesitation, and spent the next 2 days doing something I hadn't done in years: living for myself. I ate when I wanted. I slept when I felt like it. I sat by the ocean watching the waves roll in without the nagging thought of what needed to be done at home. No responsibilities, no expectations, no one demanding anything from me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt good. By Sunday evening, I pulled into the driveway, stepping back into the life I had put on hold for the weekend. But as soon as I opened the door, I knew. Things weren't the same. She was there sitting at the dining table, waiting for me. The house was still a mess. The trash was full, the dishes piled high, and the faint smell of stale food lingered in the air. She hadn't fixed anything. She hadn't cleaned or taken responsibility for the disaster she had let happen. She had just waited for me, for things to go back to normal, for me to fix everything like I always had. Had fun? She asked, her voice flat, unreadable. I set my bag down. Yeah, I did. She leaned back in the chair, crossing her arms. Must be nice, just leaving everything behind. I glanced around at the house, at the chaos she had let fester, and then met her eyes. Yeah, it was. Something in her face shifted. I saw it then, the realization that I had truly changed, that I wasn't just trying to teach her a lesson, that I wasn't waiting for her to apologize so we could patch things up. I was done. Her confidence faltered for the first time. Okay, she said, clearing her throat. So what now? You made your point. Can we stop this stupid game and get back to normal? I exhaled slowly, then walked over to the table. I pulled out an envelope from my bag, placed it in front of her, and slid it across the surface. She stared at it. What's this? Divorce papers. She didn't move, didn't speak. Just sat there, blinking, as if she hadn't heard me correctly. When she finally looked up, her expression was unreadable. You're serious? Yeah, her jaw tensed. You're throwing everything away over some stupid argument? I let out a small laugh, shaking my head. This isn't about an argument. This is about us, or the fact that there is no us anymore. She scoffed, running a hand through her hair. This is insane. You're acting like I cheated on you or something. I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air, because in a way, she had. Not in the traditional sense, not in the way that would make this easier to explain, but she had betrayed me just the same, mocking me, disrespecting me, devaluing me to the point where I was nothing more than a joke to her. She had killed our marriage with laughter, and now she had to live with the consequences. Her hands clenched into fists on the table. You're really doing this? Yeah, I said, voice steady. I am. She swallowed hard. I could see her pride fighting against something deeper. Fear, maybe. The realization that she had pushed too far, that the man who had once done everything for her was finally walking away. She could argue. She could beg. She could promise things would be different. But it was too late. I picked up my bag again, not needing anything else from that house, from that life. Good luck, I said, nodding toward the mess around us. Hope you enjoy cooking and cleaning alone. Then, without looking back, I walked out the door. And this time, I wasn't coming back.